Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So this is the part C of the third lecture on Descriptive Statistics and Islamic Approach. And in this lecture we will discuss the World Bank Development Indicators, the WDI Data Set of Life Expectancies, and we will try to analyze this data. Now, before we look at the data set, I'm going to discuss the purpose of data analysis. We're going to look at a lot of numbers, but why are we looking at these numbers? Now, in conventional statistics, an approach which goes back to Sir Ronald Fisher, who is known as the father of statistics, he said that the goal of statistics is the reduction of the data. You have a large and complicated and messy data sets, and you reduce it to a few numbers so that you can understand it better. This is very different from what I am calling the Islamic approach. And the Islamic approach, we use the numbers to learn about the real world. So the object of the numbers is not to produce more numbers or not to understand the numbers, but to understand the real world. So I'm going to demonstrate this by studying the Excel WDI data set on life expectancies, and we will learn how life expectancy has changed with time, and we will learn which countries have good high life expectancy and which have low ones, and how this has changed over time. So now I'm going to move to the data set itself, which is in an Excel spreadsheet. Here is my spreadsheet, and it has a list of 190 countries. Here is the data set. I'm scrolling to the top. This is starts with Aruba and goes to Afghanistan and so on. And the data starts with 1960 and goes up to 2018. So this is a large data set. We see that Aruba had 65.662 life expectancy, while Afghanistan had 32.446 in 1960. So just by looking at these numbers, we can't really get a good idea of what this data set is telling us. And so before we can start to understand the message of the data set, we have to simplify it in various ways. And some of the simplest things that we can do is to look at the range of this data set. What is the largest life expectancy? What is the smallest one? And what is the median? So let's look at that. I'm going to calculate the minimum here and the median. And also the maximum. So this can be done quite easily in Excel. I'm going to enter the formula which says equals min, and then the cells I want are from D2 to D191, and that will give me the minimum of this whole column, which is the life expectancies in 1960, and so it was 28. So the smallest life expectancies in 1960 over all these 190 countries is 28. I can also calculate the maximum in the same way, equals max of D2 to D198. Oh, sorry, 191. So the maximum life expectancy was 73. And now I'm going to look at the median. Median is in the middle. It's with 190 countries, it's the middle country, the one which is half of the countries are less and half are above. So D2 to D191. So the smallest life expectancy was 28, median was 54, and the highest was 73. Now I'm just going to copy this to get the same number for all the years that we have, which is going up to 2018. Okay, so that's it. Now, still these numbers are hard to analyze, so it would be useful to make a graph of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these numbers onto a separate sheet and also transpose them. I've already done that. So here I have the numbers copied over. The year is 1960, 61, and so on. The minimum is 28, as we saw. The maximum is 73, and the medium is 54. Now, I would like to look at a graph of this data, because a graph will tell us, will give us a much more clear picture of what is going on and make it easy for us to understand. So here I have highlighted the data, and now I'm going to put in a graph. The graph asks for, here is a 2D chart. This plots the maximum, the minimum, and the median. So we see that the maximum has been increasing from 72 to about 85. The median has also gone up from 55 to about 65. No, it's over 70. 55 to about 72. So the countries in the top half, the top 90 countries, have done fairly well. They have all increased their life expectancies. There's something that has gone wrong in the bottom. In the period from 1972 to 1981, there was a sharp dip in life expectancies in the minimum, and there was another sharp dip in 1990 to 1996. What happened? This is a question that we need to ask the real world. We need to go and explore why this dip occurs in the data set. For this, we need to go and look at which countries had the minimum, which we can find from the data, and what was happening in these countries that led to this dramatic decline in life expectancy. Maybe there was some war in some country which reduced life expectancies substantially, and this country is at the bottom of this data set. So there was a war in the poorest countries which caused them damage. So this is something which we need to look at the data to find out. Now the point is that these charts establish benchmarks. So we know what is the maximum, what is the median. The median is the place where half the countries are above it and half the countries are below it. And we know the bottom. So now if we want to understand the life expectancy for any country, if we put it on this frame, then we will have a better understanding of how that country has been doing. So I have done this, and I will look at Turkey. Here is our I've copied the data for Turkey and put it next here. This is TUR is Turkey, and now I'm going to make a plot with maximum, median, and minimum with Turkey included in the data set. Now I'm again going to create a graph, and here is the graph. Okay, so this is the new chart where the yellow line is the Turkish data. So if we had looked at the Turkish data in isolation, we would say yes, Turkey is making progress. It started with life expectancy at 45, and it has gone up to almost 80. We can move the chart to see what the actual data is. So it's 77, yes. So, so but that wouldn't tell us very much. This is a very important rule to understand about comparisons, that you always need a benchmark. You need to know, in order to make comparisons, you have to have two things. People say, oh, yes, Turkey has gone from 45 to 80, it has done well. But this sentence doesn't make sense, because when you say it has done well, you are saying it has done well compared to some benchmark. And by omitting the benchmark, you create a lot of different types of confusions and ambiguities and deceptions. So it's always important to have a clear benchmark for comparison. So here, by plotting the minimum, maximum, and median, we get clear benchmarks. So now if we look at the Turkish data, we see that it starts out in the middle of the between the bottom and the median. So it's significantly below median in 1960. But over time, it makes progress relative to the median, and towards the end in 2017, it is above median. So it was in the bottom half of the countries at the start of this period, and it ended up in the top half. So it has done well relative to the other countries. So when we have a benchmark, we can say how the country has performed, because we can compare it to the minimum, the maximum, and the bottom. So while Turkey has done well, it is not. It is only slightly above median. It has not done as well as the best countries. So there is room for improvement. So this data set is telling us about what has been happening to life expectancies. In general, they have been increasing, and we know how much they have been increasing. They have gone from 72 to 85 or so. So now the question is, why have life expectancies been increasing? What did Turkey do that was different from other countries, which caused it to uh, go from the bottom half to the top half? What were the reasons for these two dips we see in the minimum life expectancy? So these are all the questions about the real world that we um, arrive at from looking at the data. So this is nothing to do with data detection. Basically, this is a different approach to statistical analysis. We look at the numbers uh, to learn about the real world, and the numbers suggest to us give us some pictures which we can understand, and from these pictures we have to go and explore the real world phenomena, which are the cause of these patterns that we see in the pictures. So this is a different approach, because it requires us to look at the numbers together with the underlying reality. So that is the end of this lecture. We will do further data analysis in the next part.